Story 1. I don't know if telling you this will make me feel lighter or curse me deeper, but I need to get it out before I forget who I am. The strangest thing about our dorm wasn't the peeling paint or the flickering hallway lights. It was the door at the very end of the east corridor. It looked like any other room, except it had no name tag, no number, just a plain wooden door with a rusted handle. Seniors told us it had been locked for years. Nobody lived there. Nobody ever had. At least that's what they said. The first time I noticed it, I was walking back after midnight, and I swear I heard muffled crying coming from behind it. It was faint, like someone sobbing into a pillow. I stopped, listened, and the sound stopped instantly. I laughed it off as exam stress making me hear things. But the next night, the scratching started. Not like rats, not random scuttling. It was long, deliberate strokes, like someone was dragging their nails down the inside of the door. I didn't tell anyone at first. But when a week passed, two of my friends, Ria and Ankit, admitted they'd heard the same noises. That's how it began. 3 stupid college kids fueling each other's fear. One evening, we all gathered in the corridor, whispering about it like some campfire dare. Ria said she even heard humming once, a broken tune that ended in a cough. Ankit was the bravest among us, or the dumbest. He smirked and said, "I'll prove it's just our imagination. All I need is one peek." The tension built as we huddled closer. The door had an old keyhole, large enough to see through. Ankit bent down, his face inches away. I stood behind him, half shaking, half curious. For a long moment he was silent. Then his voice came out, shaky, thin. There's someone inside." We thought he was joking. But when I leaned close, I saw his face had drained of all color. He stumbled back, nearly tripping over his shoes. "An eye," he whispered, barely audible. An eye staring back. Silence drowned us. The whole corridor felt colder. None of us dared to bend down after that. The door suddenly looked monstrous, like it was breathing. A locked chest hiding something alive. That night was the longest of my life. I could swear the scratching grew louder, as if it knew we had looked. By morning, Ankit was different. He was pale, distracted, barely speaking. When we asked, he just muttered, "It watches." We thought he was messing with us. The next evening, I went to call him for dinner. His room door was locked. No sound, no response to knocking. I thought maybe he was tired. But when I tried again later, the door wouldn't even rattle with my knocks. It was locked tight from the inside. Ria came over, worried. We pounded together, called his name, shouted. Nothing. We even fetched the warden, but when she tried, she just scolded us for disturbing her and walked off. Ankit never answered. By midnight, the hallway outside his room felt suffocating. I pressed my ear against the door. For a second, I swore I could hear soft, broken sobbing, the same kind that came from the locked dorm at the end of the corridor. That was the last time I tried to open his door. The next morning, everyone acted normal. Too normal. His bed was neatly made. His books were gone, his clothes too, as if he had never stayed there. When I asked others about Ankit, they just tilted their heads like I was making names up. Even Ria looked through me blankly and said, "Who? I nearly went mad. How could she forget him? He was our friend." Desperate, I ran down the hallway and stopped in front of the room with no number. My hand trembled as I touched the handle. Cold. Too cold. The scratching started again, faint, taunting. I nearly pressed my eye against the keyhole, but something in me screamed, "Don't look." I don't know if it was fear or instinct. I stepped back, heart hammering, and then the sobbing stopped. The silence was worse. That was 3 nights ago. Since then, I've been noticing small changes in myself. My reflection lingers a second too long in the mirror. My dreams are filled with endless corridors, every door leading only to that locked one. And sometimes, when I wake, I feel like there's someone lying on the bed beside me, breathing softly. I tried asking others again about Ankit, about that room, but every time the name leaves my lips, people look at me like I've said nonsense. Last night, even Ria avoided my eyes completely. She won't talk to me anymore. I think it's happening to me now. Today, when I walked past the door with no number, I felt it. A gaze boring into me, following me, feeding on me. The scratching has stopped for good, because maybe it doesn't need to scratch anymore. Maybe it already knows it's inside the right room. Mine. Story 2. I should start by saying this. I'm not crazy. At least I don't think I am. But after what happened in my freshman year at Ridgewood Dorm, I can't tell anymore. When I first arrived at college, I was nervous and lonely. Everyone else already seemed to find their groups, while I stood there dragging my suitcase down unfamiliar halls. The dorm was old, the kind that smelled faintly of damp wood and dust, with pipes groaning at night like something suffering beneath the floors. That's where I met Sam, my new roommate. He was sitting on the bed by the window when I first entered the room, tall, with messy brown hair that always seemed damp, like he'd just come from the rain. He smiled when I introduced myself, a little awkward but kind. We hit it off strangely well. He'd offer me half his snacks, leave me jokey notes on my desk, don't drown in assignments, and sometimes stay awake with me when I couldn't sleep, whispering stories about his hometown. That first week, he was my only friend. But then little things started to feel off. At meals in the cafeteria, when I waved him over, he never came. My classmates told me they had never seen him around. "You live alone, right?" they'd ask. I'd laugh it off, explaining my roommate preferred staying in, except he didn't. Sam was always around, sitting on his bed, drying his hair with a towel, humming tunelessly when I studied. One night, half joking, I asked him, "Why don't you ever show up in class?" He smiled in the half-dark and said, "Maybe I don't belong there." The way he said it made something in me tighten, but I pushed it away. It got worse the night the fire alarm went off. Everyone had to evacuate, so we crowded into the chilly parking lot in pajamas. I looked for Sam, expecting him to be at my side, but he wasn't there. When I told Rena from next door that he was probably still inside, she frowned. "You mean your roommate?" she said. I thought that room was assigned for a single. Her words stuck in me like glass. When we were finally allowed back, I stormed into the room. His bed was messy, sheets still warm, and a half-empty bag of chips sat open on his desk. He had been there. I hadn't imagined it. I couldn't leave it at that. Over the next days, I started asking people about Sam, professors, classmates, even the dorm manager. Nobody knew him. Nobody had ever seen him. Some even looked at me with pity, which made my skin crawl. When I begged the warden to check the dorm security footage for proof, she agreed reluctantly. "This is you last Friday night, isn't it?" she said, clicking play. What I saw on the screen made my stomach turn. There I was, pacing the hallway outside my room, laughing, talking animatedly. But I was alone. No one walked beside me. No one handed me chips or patted my shoulder like I remembered. I was gesturing into empty air. The sound cut in too. Just me, mumbling and giggling at pauses where no one spoke back. I swear I felt something ice-cold breathe against my neck as I watched. I ran back to the dorm afterwards, furious, terrified, hugging every shadow as if it might answer. Sam sat waiting on his bed, calm, smiling. "You asked about me, didn't you?" he said. My throat seized up. I couldn't admit it, couldn't confirm. I sat frozen, listening to the radiator hiss while his grin twitched wider. Finally, I whispered, "Who are you?" He didn't blink, didn't move, just leaned forward and said, very softly, "I'm your only friend. Why would you try to erase me?" That night, I couldn't sleep. His side of the room seemed darker than mine, like the shadows bent differently where he lay. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt weight on my chest, like someone pinning me down, invisible fingers brushing against my face. In the morning, there were 2 toothbrushes in the sink. His was wet. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. I walked in to find a note on my desk scrawled in Sam's sloppy writing. "Stop telling them about me. They'll take me away." The words trembled in ink, but the paper was warm, like it had been clutched hard in a sweaty fist. The next time I asked Rena to check, she swore there was only 1 toothbrush. She swore Sam's bed had been neatly made for days, untouched. But I see the sheets wrinkled every morning. I hear him humming when I study. And sometimes, when I wake in the blue dawn, he's sitting at the desk, writing notes I'm too scared to read. I don't know what's real anymore. Maybe Sam never existed. Maybe he's just a shadow of my loneliness, a demon in the shape of a friend. Or maybe he was real once, and everyone else forgot him like the dorm erased his name. All I know is he's still here, right now, sitting on the edge of his bed, smiling at me as I write this. And if you're listening, please tell me you remember him. Please tell me I'm not the only one. Story 3. Have you ever seen yourself do something you didn't? Not in dreams, not in memories, but in a mirror. That's how it began for me. Our dorm had this old common lounge on the ground floor. The paint was peeling, the chairs were mismatched, and it always smelled of burnt coffee. But what really made people avoid it was the mirror. A massive, floor-length mirror screwed to the far wall. No one even remembered who brought it or why it was there. Then again, nobody really wanted to. At first glance, it looked like any normal mirror. People passing by would just catch their faces, their tired eyes, their slouching shoulders. But if you stayed long enough, if you stared, you noticed it. The reflection didn't follow. Sometimes it was delayed, half a second slower. Sometimes it was too fast, leaving behind jerky traces before catching up. And sometimes, late at night, it showed people who weren't even there. Students no one talked about anymore. Students who had left, or so we thought. The first time I saw it myself, I was coming back from the library. The lounge light was dim, buzzing faintly. I slowed down in front of the mirror, and there I was. Only, not quite. My reflection blinked before I did, tilted its head a moment after mine. A lag, only a split second, but enough to make my throat dry. I forced myself to smile. My reflection smiled wider, stretching too much, like my face didn't know how to stop. I ran back to my room that night, convincing myself my eyes were tired. But the image of that stretched grin burned into my mind. Other students whispered about it too. Rena said she saw her reflection walking out of the mirror's frame, moving toward the darkened corner of the lounge. Rahul swore he once glimpsed a boy leaning in the background, someone who used to live on our floor but had died 2 years back in an accident. We laughed off his story, but the way his eyes shifted nervously told us he wasn't joking. The worst part? When we checked old yearbooks later, that boy was real. He had indeed lived here before us. We made a rule, unspoken but solid. Don't stop by the mirror after midnight. But rules never hold when curiosity breeds. One Thursday, around 1 a.m., I couldn't sleep. The dorm was quiet, humming faintly with old pipes. I wandered downstairs, pretending I just needed water. What I really wanted was to see it again. The lounge was empty. The mirror loomed in faint yellow light. I stood in front of it. My chest thudded. At first, normal. Just me. Then, slowly, something slipped. My reflection began moving too slowly, like it lagged several seconds behind. I lifted my hand. It stayed frozen, then followed. I laughed nervously. Okay, that's creepy. But then came the part I can never forget. I turned to leave. The glass still showed me standing there, still smiling. My reflection hadn't moved with me. It stared back at me from the mirror, perfectly still, wearing that same stretched grin from before. I froze. My real body was halfway to the door, but there in the glass I stood rooted, smiling, smiling, smiling. Panic surged in me. I waved my arms. Nothing. My reflection only twitched its head slowly, like a predator studying prey. The grin widened. I swear it leaned closer to the inside of the glass. My heart nearly tore my chest apart. I bolted upstairs, slammed into my room, and shoved the chair under the handle. I didn't dare sleep. In the darkness, I could feel something smiling at me, even though the mirror was 2 floors below. The next day, I pretended nothing happened, until Rena came up to me in the cafeteria. Her face was pale. She whispered, "Why were you in the lounge last night? I saw you." I froze. "I wasn't," I said. She gave me a confused, frightened look. "You smiled at me from the mirror. You didn't move when I walked by, just smiled." That was the last time she spoke to me directly. Since then, something's been different. My reflection doesn't always match anymore. Sometimes in the bathroom mirror, it lingers a second longer when I turn away. Sometimes I see it grinning faintly when I'm not. Last night was worse. I woke up to a sound, soft, like fingernails tapping glass. Except the only mirror in my room was a small square above the sink. Too small to make that much echo. When I looked, the glass was fogged, faint condensation from nothing. And written in it, smeared by unseen fingers, were words, "Let me out." I don't know what's real anymore. Students are disappearing from dorm records, fewer faces in the hall, fewer names on notices. Nobody mentions them. Nobody remembers them. But sometimes I see them in the mirror, standing behind me. I don't know how long I can resist. Even right now, as I write this, I feel something burning in my cheeks. I check the screen of my laptop, see my reflection. My lips are still. But the reflection? It's already smiling. Story 4. If you've ever stayed awake too long, you'll know that reality starts to bend. Corners look too sharp, shadows stretch longer, sounds turn strange. That's what I thought was happening to us that night. But it wasn't exhaustion. It was something else. It was finals week, and our study group had walked back from the library at nearly 2 a.m. The campus was dead quiet, except for the hum of old streetlights. We were bone-tired, half laughing, half miserable. Me, Rena, and Arjun, 3 zombies dragging ourselves toward Ridgewood dorm. The second we stepped inside, I knew something was off. The hallway seemed longer than usual, much longer. At first, we joked. Arjun stretched his arms and said, "Man, did someone add an extra 20 feet tonight?" Rena gave a flat laugh and pushed hair out of her face. I smiled weakly, but every step made my stomach feel heavier. Our doors should have been 15 paces from the entrance. We walked 30, then 50, and still, nothing. Just the same walls, the same dirty carpet, the same buzzing lights flickering above us. I turned back, expecting to see the lobby, but the way behind us looked just as long, stretching into darkness. That's when the whispers began. At first, they were faint, like words carried through pipes, a murmur slipping through plaster. Then they grew clearer. "Choose a door. Choose a door." Rena stopped moving. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. We all had. The voices were not ours, not echoes. They were close, yet not from our world. The hallway shifted then. We started seeing doors that shouldn't be there, old wooden ones with nameplates. But the names, they weren't ours. "Wait," Arjun frowned, stepping closer. "These are old names." He whispered one aloud. It hit me where I'd seen them. Photos in past yearbooks. Ghost stories upperclassmen told about kids who had dropped out, or worse. "Don't touch them," Rena said quickly, pulling him back. Her face was pale, trembling with fear she couldn't explain. The whispers kept building. Choose. Choose right. Or stay forever. The flickering lights made the hallway swim. Shadows stretched across doors that didn't belong. My chest tightened. I wanted to run, but run where? Every step only took us deeper into the endless corridor. Finally, Arjun snapped. "Screw this! I'm opening one!" "Don't," I started, but he was already gripping the handle of a door with a faded plate that read, "Maya Kapoor, a girl who'd overdosed in this dorm 6 years ago." The story rushed back to me like ice water. Arjun twisted the handle. The door creaked open. Behind it was no room, just darkness, a hallway of its own. He took one step forward and vanished. No sound, no scream. Gone. Rena gasped and yanked me backward, both of us trembling so hard we nearly collapsed. The whispers hissed louder, overlapping, a chorus of desperate voices. "Choose the right door. Choose. Choose." I wanted to cover my ears but couldn't move. My legs were cement. Suddenly, one door near the end glowed faintly. Its nameplate was blank. No carved letters, no history, just emptiness. Rena tugged my arm. "That's it. That's the one." I hesitated. My pulse roared. What if it was another trap? But the whispers seemed to bow, soften, as if acknowledging it. We bolted for the door together. I shoved it open and bright light blinded me. I stumbled forward and slammed against solid carpet. When my vision cleared, I was back in the real hallway. The short, normal hallway, only a few steps from my room. I gasped, heart racing, tears in my eyes. Rena was gone. Her hand had been gripping mine when we jumped. But now, I was alone, clutching air. The next morning, everyone acted normal. No one mentioned Rena. Her bed was neatly made, her things gone. There was no trace she'd ever lived there. When I asked others, they told me maybe I was confused. Maybe she lived in another dorm. Some didn't even remember her name. But I remember. I remember her fingers gripping mine in that humming, endless nightmare of a hallway. I remember them slipping away the moment I stepped through the blank door. And I still hear her sometimes. At night, when I lie half asleep, I hear her voice, sharp and scared, mingling with the whispers in the walls. "You chose wrong." Now I avoid the hall after midnight. But the truth? It doesn't help. I've noticed my own nameplate flicker sometimes. Just a shadow play, I tell myself. Just tired eyes. But deep down I know what it means. The hallway isn't done with me. And when finals return, it'll be waiting. Story 5. They say when alarms ring, it's a warning. But what if it's not warning you out, but luring you in? It started at exactly 2 a.m. The fire alarm ripped me out of a half-dream, the shrill screech cutting through the walls of Ridgewood dorm like knives. My first thought was annoyance. False alarms weren't rare, but protocol was protocol, so I joined the sleepy river of half-dressed students streaming toward the stairwell. Everyone groaned, covering their ears, muttering curses. No smoke in the air, no heat in the walls, just that endless mechanical shriek urging us down, out the doors, into the night. That's when I noticed the mist. It clung outside the dorm like a wall, rolling low and thick, swallowing the courtyard, smothering the lampposts. I had never seen fog this heavy before. We clustered together on the steps, shivering in our pajamas, peering outward. No fire trucks, no staff. Just the alarm blaring endlessly behind us, so loud it made my teeth ache. Minutes passed, then an hour. Still no one came. My watch read 3:10. The alarm didn't stop. That's when the first scream drifted out of the mist. At first it sounded far away, muffled, almost carried by wind. A single cry twisting with agony, and then another. All of us froze. "Is that inside?" someone asked. It was. Though the building behind us looked unchanged, steady and silent except for the shriek of its alarm, the mist seemed to carry more voices, more screams, some faint, some ear-splitting, male, female, never-ending. A girl named Aisha turned pale. What if there's really a fire? What if people are trapped inside? She turned toward the door, tugging at the handle. No, wait! Someone grabbed her sleeve, but too late. She stepped through. The instant she crossed the threshold, she winked out like a soap bubble. 1 second there, the next, nothing. The doors swung back calmly, revealing only the same brightly lit lobby. We screamed. Some students ran down the steps, stumbling blindly into the fog, calling for help. None returned. The mist swallowed them whole. The rest of us huddled together like animals. The longer we stood there, the more wrongness pressed in. The air felt heavy, salt-tasting, burned cold against my throat. The mist swirled slowly, as if moving with us, hemming us in tighter. By 4 a.m., panic set in. The alarm never faltered. Some of us tried phones, no signal, no Wi-Fi. Screens glitched with static when we held them too close to the mist. The screams kept coming. Too many now. Too many to be inside a building of 200 residents. They layered over each other, shrieking, moaning, sobbing. A chorus of voices lost in some unseen, burning hell. What if the building isn't ours anymore? Someone whispered. Nobody laughed. Nobody even disagreed. By 4:30, Mark from second floor cracked. He mumbled something about his girlfriend still being inside, promised he'd bring her back, and bolted. We begged him to stop. He didn't. I'll never forget it. He ran up the steps, shoved through those doors, and vanished cleanly in an instant. A muffled scream bled through the mist right after, like something was waiting for him inside. The lobby still glowed harmlessly as we stared. By 5, our group had dwindled. Some wandered into the fog, half mad, desperate to escape. Some broke down sobbing on the steps. The alarm droned on, metallic and merciless. Rena clutched my arm. Her voice was cracked, her lips blue. What if this is it? What if we're all already dead? I wanted to deny it, but couldn't. The world beyond the mist did not exist anymore. There was only Ridgewood Dorm, screaming voices, endless alarm, and time. Time stopped meaning anything. Eventually, the horizon dulled gray with dawn. We thought maybe that would break it, lift the fog, silence the noise, but the mist only grew brighter, glowing in daylight without fading. One by one, people gave up. Someone muttered a prayer and walked back inside. Someone else ran headfirst into the thickest part of the fog. Both were gone before I even blinked, until only I remained. It is day 3 now. The alarm has never stopped. My ears bleed when I press my palms too hard against them. The screams in the mist, God! The screams are louder, mixed with voices I know. Mark's voice, begging. Aisha crying. Even my mother calling my name. Sometimes I feel the fog brushing against my skin, reaching with invisible fingers. The boundary shrinking. Soon it'll force me back in. I stand alone on these steps, notebook in my lap, writing this before it happens. When you find these pages, if you find them, listen to me carefully. If the fire alarm rings at 2 a.m., do not leave your bed. Do not go outside. Because the sound isn't calling you to safety. It's calling you to join them. And if you do, you'll never come back. Story 6. Do you ever wake up in the middle of the night because you felt someone watching you? Not a dream. Real pressure, real eyes on you in the dark. That's how it started. At our dorm, people complained of the same thing over and over. Heavy breathing in their rooms while they slept, right by their ears, the kind that makes your chest tighten before you even open your eyes. Some swore they saw a shadowy figure hovering by the bed, but when they screamed or flicked the lights on, nothing. Laughter came easily in the day. It's just the pipes. Old building, bad air vents. You're just overtired. But at night, when everything was silent, you could hear it, the faint drag of air, as if someone else were in there with you. The first time it happened to me was around 3 a.m. I woke suddenly, heart hammering. There was breathing near me. Not mine, not steady, wet and heavy, huffing like a tired animal. I couldn't move. My eyes adjusted to the dark, and I saw something darker than the dark. A tall, stretched shadow near my bed, its head tilted, watching, hovering. I gasped, reached for the switch, and flooded the room with yellow light. The shadow was gone. Silence. No one there. But my sheets were warm, twisted, as if something had been sitting on them. The next day, I tried brushing it off. But more students shared stories in whispers. Rahul swore he woke to see 2 hands clutching his blanket. Meena claimed she saw glowing eyes crouched low, right near the vent by her bed. Everyone laughed nervously, but nobody was really joking. One guy we barely knew, Ashwin, was the only one brave enough to do something about it. "I'll prove it's real," he said one night, smirking as he set up a small, hidden camera on his desk. "If my ghost friend loves tucking me in so much, we'll get it on tape." We pretended to laugh, but none of us were smiling. The next morning, he didn't join us at breakfast or lunch. By evening, all of us went to his room together. He was pale, sitting stiffly on his bed, staring at nothing. The camera was still recording, the little red light blinking. "What happened?" I asked. He swallowed. His voice was hoarse. "You don't want to see it, but of course we did." We gathered around his laptop as he pressed play. At first, nothing unusual. The grainy video showed Ashwin climbing into bed around midnight, rolling over, adjusting the sheets. He looked peaceful, breathing slowly. Hours passed in fast forward, just the stillness of a boy asleep. Then, around 3:14 a.m., movement. The vent above his desk rattled slightly. The cover nudged out, and from the black square, something emerged. At first I thought it was a hand. No, an arm, bent wrong. Then a head followed, misshapen, too long, with hair hanging in sticky clumps. Piece by piece it slithered out, angles and limbs twisting unnaturally, until a deformed figure crawled down the wall on all fours. It was tall, though crouched like a spider, its arms dragged behind it. We screamed when we saw it lean over Ashwin's bed. The thing bent close to his sleeping face, hovering inches above. Ashwin didn't stir, didn't know. The creature raised one crooked hand and gently, almost lovingly, stroked his hair. It did this for minutes, slow strokes, as though memorizing him. Then it tilted its head toward the camera, straight at us. It smiled, its jaw hung longer than it should, teeth catching the dim glow. Finally, it crawled back up, back inside the vent, dragging itself like something boneless. The vent snapped shut. Ashwin kept sleeping, never knowing. The footage ended. We were shaking, whispering curses, trying to laugh but unable to unclench our stomachs. Nobody dared look at the vents above us. Ashwin just sat there, gray and hollow. "It touches all of us," he said. "You don't wake up, but it's there, every night." That night, I didn't sleep. None of us did. Even with lights blazing, the dorm felt suffocating. Every small creak turned my blood to ice. When the vents hissed, I nearly screamed. By sunrise, our pact was silent, but certain. No one would ever sleep in silence again. Fans, radios, phones, anything to fill the air with sound. White noise became our savior. Silence meant we'd hear the breathing again, and sometimes, even with noise, I swear I catch the faint scrape of metal covers shifting from above. A month later, Ashwin left school. No note, no goodbye. The warden said he withdrew, but when I passed his empty room, the vent cover hung loose, swinging gently, like something enormous had squeezed through. Now it's back to me, crawling inside my head when I try to rest. I can't look at my vents anymore, can't close both eyes. But last night, exhaustion dragged me under, and I woke up to my hair being stroked. For more stories like this, share and subscribe Goofy Horror.